On today's episode, I'm speaking with a former dancer turned DJ from Wollongong, Australia, who moved to New York almost 6 years ago after living in Sydney for 6 years before that, and found her calling in the world of disco after looking for work in one career, but then found herself working for one of New York's integral clubs and has been ever since. Already an avid lover of vinyl culture and of disco, the roots and what it represents for free expression on a dance floor and in life, Lauren Murada moved to New York to find a career in journalism, but stumbled upon a social media role after seeking bar work for New York's Good Room in Brooklyn. Since then, Lauren has been impacting one dancer at a time, bringing their inner freak and wild side out with weirdo disco, funk rock, and soulful house. Lauren Murada is now a resident DJ at Good Room in Brooklyn, along with L&L Record Club, and has a monthly show on The Lot Radio. Lauren has also a bi-monthly party called Love Games with Finn Jones. Her mission is to keep disco alive and its true essence through her projects, parties, radio, and DJ sets, where love always saves the day. Inspired by David Mancuso's The Loft, where freeform music is the policy, Murada's parties, Love Games, and collective L&L Record Club have now spread love and their passion for disco to Japan, Australia, Spain, Canada, and across the US. Her and her collective have shared the decks with the likes of Danny Krevit, Spinner, Holy Ghost, Classics, Tim Sweeney, Session Victim, and more. On today's episode, we're discussing how life finds you, New York's clubland and the power of streaming, and of course, the wonderful world of disco. Lauren Murada, welcome to Electronic Music Man. So glad you could join me on the show. I've been wanting to get you on for some time now. How are you? How's life in New York?
Life in New York is very interesting right now, but everybody is still having fun. Like, New York in the summertime is one of the most fun places I've ever experienced. But now we're just doing it in a socially distant way.
Mm-hmm. And we spoke about it before, but you've been making some trips up North State, and how's that been for? I guess it must be a treat, being able to have that experience now.
Yeah, absolutely. With the quarantine, New Yorkers did really well quarantining. Unlike the rest of America, we actually listened to what the government said to us, and we stayed inside our apartments for 3 months, not really doing anything. And now that it's summertime, everybody's ready for a bit of a break. So, I've done it with my friends. Lots of other people do it. You get like a house upstate, and, I'm lucky with my friends that everybody is a DJ, and we take some turntables up there and play some music and then in nature and get to dance in nature and just have a good time.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you moved to New York, and I find it amazing, fascinating, your story about how you almost serendipitous, really, like how this whole thing sort of unfolded for you, and you were kind of almost down on your last sort of whim, and things changed for you with Good Room, and since then you've, I guess, been pretty involved with New York City's nightlife and the Good Room. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think it was a mix of luck and fate, I would say. Basically, when I moved to New York, I had enough money to last me 3 months, and in my head, I was like, well, if I don't find a job, I've just had a really fun holiday in New York for 3 months, and if I do find a job, then I'll stay. And I was originally looking for journalism jobs because that's what I did in Sydney. And I learned that in New York, journalism is very much a freelance hustle. And I don't have that kind of spirit in me. So I just wasn't having any luck finding journalism jobs. And I wanted to find any kind of job so I could stay. And I had a friend who was the graphic designer at Good Room, and I asked him if they needed any bartenders. Mind you, I would be a terrible bartender. Thank goodness they didn't employ me as a bartender. But he knew about my journalism background, so he said, hey, we need someone to do our social media. And that was kind of it. And, since then that's turned, my official role at Good Room is marketing manager.
Right.
So that's turned into doing everything from our tickets, our website, to organizing all of our podcasts, as well as our social media, newsletters, PR, everything like that.
Was there a background, like, I mean, in terms of, had you had experience in social media and marketing before somewhat, or was that something that you kind of picked up along the way?
I had done a little bit of like Facebook social media for the last newspaper I worked for in Sydney.
Okay.
But that was it. I have had no marketing training at all. It's all just kind of been learn on the job.
And how did you go on? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the good thing about doing this job, walking into it, doing marketing, even though I've never done marketing, is that I know the audience that they are trying to capture, though. So I know how to speak to that audience, and having a writing background definitely helps with social media.
It seems, though, that you're, because obviously you've had this sort of passion for disco and this love for, I guess, the disco culture and vinyl culture before in Australia, in Sydney. Mm-hmm. And somewhere in your subconscious, it kind of like drew you towards Goodroom. And how did this connection with Goodroom happen? Like, was that through, you said, a friend that introduced you to them or to the people?
Yeah, my friend, he was also from Australia, and he was working as their graphic designer at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Before I got the job, I had been to Goodroom before to go out dancing, you know. Mm-hmm. They at the time had only been open for not even 4 months, so they were still very new, still figuring out, you know, their voice and their place in the scene in New York. Because I'm sure, like anyone, most people can see, you know, a club in its infancy, the first year is always the hardest. You're constantly trying out new parties, new DJs, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, finding your crowd and finding your space, you know. So I was really happy to be able to come on from the start and really get to build it with the team there.
Would you say that this was like some sort of calling for you because there was that passion and love?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, the reason I wanted to move to New York was because I love disco so much. So it's kind of kismet that I ended up working at a nightclub for sure.
Was it a surprise, or was it like, well, it kind of makes sense?
No, it absolutely was a surprise. You know, in Sydney, I would have called myself like a bedroom DJ. Yeah. I had turntables set up at home and I had records. I'd have friends over and play, but I really wasn't at the point where I was like playing parties and things like that. But, you know, I love disco so much. I always wanted to move to New York, and yeah, it all just kind of fell into place for me.
Yeah. Amazing how life happens that way.
Yes.
and I mean, was Goodroom's intentions to get behind disco at any, like, or was it more electronic music? Like, I mean,
it's definitely more electronic. Yeah. It's more electronic music, but it's all underground electronic music, I would say. You know, we have nights like everything from, you know, disco and house to techno to drum and bass. We're big believers in, you know, like quality music, you know. So, yeah, we definitely do a bit of everything. And there's a big underground techno scene in Brooklyn, you know. So we do have quite a few techno parties, but we try to keep it as diverse as possible, you know. You can go on a Friday night and the music will be completely different to the Saturday night. But you know that if you walk into the club, the music's going to be good quality regardless of the genre that night.
And would it be fair to say that the disco influence of the venue has something to do with you?
Well, I mean, we do have lots of, like, we have parties with Nicky Stiano 4 times a year.
Oh, wow.
We do his Native New Yorker party. We have Danny Krivet's 718 sessions. We have them from like October till April. And, you know, I'm a big proponent of those parties. I'll always work those parties. And sometimes I don't even work the 718 parties, but I'm like always the last person on the dance floor.
I bet.
Yeah.
I think this sort of opportunity, though, like, I mean, we're both from Sydney, and this is kind of like a dream job. Like,
I'm very well aware that this job, it might exist in one club in Sydney. And to be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't want to do it at that club. I have to believe in the music to be able to do this job. And I don't think, if there was a club where I didn't appreciate the music, how could I try and go out and promote that music? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Surely, like you said before, luck and fate. I truly believe that there was a calling for you to be in New York at that time and be there. I mean, I remember when I met you, you were telling me bits of this story and I was just like fascinated by it. I was like, oh my God, like really? This is how it happened? And yeah, I mean, it does, being at the right place at the right time, but I think it also has a lot to do with your background as well. And it kind of like everything that your love, your passion, the stuff that you've done before led you to that point where, this opportunity came through. And look at that, the last 6 years, you've been actually fulfilling this part of you that, as I guess you were yearning for and really wanted. And yeah, I mean, this journey, this ride has brought so much life and love and joy, right?
Well, all the friends I have in New York, I know because I work at Good Room. They're all people I met on the dance floor. And we're so lucky in New York to have a very strong disco community here. And that's all centered around the Loft, really.
Yeah.
Everybody is like family here. I guess in New York, you can understand because you live overseas as well. Like the people that you meet in New York are your family because you don't have your family here. So your friends are your family. And it's like, we call it our disco family. We got a disco mama. Like... It's really, the connections that I've made with people are incredibly beautiful. And even though we connect on the dance floor, but then we connect in real life as well.
And that's important. So it's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you know what the other really awesome thing is about having so many friends who love music is that you're constantly finding out about new music too, which I love. Like, last night, my friend had a barbecue on his rooftop and pulled his decks up there. And like one of the DJs from the Loft was playing alongside him. And we were just like up there watching the sunset, New York skyline in the background. Just, like, all pretty special.
Yes. It sounds terrible.
It was pretty terrible. Yeah.
I wasn't in New York at this time last year. It was like May. I think it was May.
Yeah, it was May. Yeah.
May. And it was still cool though. The weather was, but after experiencing that trip, I can totally relate to those kind of moments where you just kind of like, is this really happening?
That happens to me all the time.
Here I am like, that's like someone from the Loft, I remember just like, going out to all these places that has such an influence on my music palette and my music history, and finally being able to kind of like walk those streets and experience these places and see some of these DJs that are just like iconic worldwide and are still at the head of their game now as well. It's just like, it was just, I think, it was definitely, it gave me like this whole like resurgence and made me feel a new love for this path and this joy, like this for this career. And it just gave me another understanding of the impact that music has on people's lives and what it represents. And, I don't want to get all too mushy and sentimental, but it does, we have a role, and with music, we create experiences, we create memories and I could honestly wake up in the morning and feel terrible and just put on a track that it'll just change my whole mood for the rest of the day.
Absolutely. I found that in quarantine a lot of times there would be like a live stream happening and I just had it on in the background and I was having a terrible day and the DJ was killing it, and next minute I'm like dancing around my apartment all happy. Like, music definitely has a massive effect on your mood.
Especially during this time, and through some of these interviews that I've been doing and speaking to some DJs and realizing our role as DJs. While, I'm not going to have thousands of people watching my live streams, but even if I've got a few 100 or a couple of people watching, or even 10, 20, 30 people, it still brought me the same satisfaction. Like it just because I knew that I was making some sort of an impact on someone's lives. New York's Clubland has definitely had a huge impact, and it's changed a lot. And I noticed that Good Room has done some sort of special events as well. How has that been for, I guess, the loyal Good Room people that loved the Good Room experience, and just in general, like live streaming? How's that been for you guys?
Well, yeah, we started doing the live streams around May or late April, early May, because we just wanted to, like, first of all, give people music because they can't be in clubs anymore. You know, on a Friday night when you normally be out dancing, you can be at home and dance, you know, get a DJ mix. And second of all was just to, you know, keep the Good Room name going, because we just don't want people to forget about us. But I mean, also the live streams serve as a fundraiser for the club, because there's no help for the arts at all. The arts or hospitality, for that matter. You know, like I looked, like, you know, in England, in the UK, I think it was last week, they announced they're giving grants to nightclubs. In Berlin, there's heaps of grants, or like money going to DJs and things like that. Here it is nothing. So, you know, we do the streams is like, you can buy like an online ticket, and it can be a donation of however much money you want. And the money, we split 50-50 between the club and the DJs who are playing, to help give the DJs a bit of money.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I was wondering how some of the DJs that on the regular circuit around New York, that's their main income, and that's all gone now.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you've heard about the way they're surviving at the moment? Like, what are some of the solutions that they've found?
Well, they have had a national unemployment, like a pandemic. I don't know how to describe. Like it's
like a surplus,
like so. Usually, you get a certain amount on unemployment, which I believe is only like $180, which is like nothing that anyone can live off, especially in New York.
Yeah.
And the national government, like the federal government, has been giving everybody $600 extra on top of that pandemic relief. That's what they called it.
That's right. I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the end of July, it ran out, and they're trying to do a deal to try and get it back, but it's not going to be as much money. So everybody's kind of freaking out right now. Like I was on Facebook this morning, and I saw a friend of mine who he works in clubs too. He's also like a singer. Who's like, I got to leave New York. I can't afford to stay here. All I'm doing is like racking up debt, and you know, it's time to go. And then so many people are leaving, which is really sad. Like, because New York is, the rent, first of all, is just incredibly expensive, and then just to live is incredibly expensive. So when you're not earning any money, you can't really do it, you know.
Yeah. And how about yourself? Like, how are you getting on right now? I mean, are you still earning a bit of income from Good Room, and are there other income streams that you're looking at?
I've been getting like a little bit of cash here and there from Good Room, from the money that we've been getting from the fundraisers, as well as merch sales. I got some of my super out in Australia.
Yeah.
So I've been using that, my little pocket money.
Yeah.
One of the good things right now is you're not really spending a lot of money, because you're not going out and doing as much. You know, like you can budget for a lot less than what you normally would.
Yeah. From Clubland to labels as well. Like, I've learned that some labels are actually flourishing at the moment, which baffles me, because how are people buying music or buying records, especially now when they're not earning money to pay for these records? So what have you learned in terms of labels that you know of in New York in particular?
I haven't really heard so much about labels, but I have friends that own record shops.
Okay.
And they all said that during this time, their Discogs was going off.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. I find that crazy. Like record stores and they're closed, and they're making more sales online. They're shipping, and isn't that amazing?
I know, yeah. Because people, you know, they might finally have the time that they didn't have before to really dig for music, and they're finding new things that they want, you know.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I'm finding myself doing all sorts of jobs and things that I've been putting off for so long. And
That's great. I haven't really done anything like that. I definitely have, though, during this time period, made a lot more mixes than I normally would. So I have been finding a lot more new music because of that reason. Because I try not to repeat music from mix to mix, So
I feel the same way.
That's been good.
So where are you putting your mixes out these days? Any particular? Have you got a Mixcloud or a SoundCloud that you're?
SoundCloud.
You got a SoundCloud under your name?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check it out.
We stayed on top of our Lot Radio residency because they were closed. They closed the booth during the pandemic, but they got people to do live streams at home, or you could pre-record mixes. So is that
how you were running your shows with the girls?
Yeah, we did the pre-recorded ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it normally all three of you together when you do the shows, or do you sometimes separately? Or
well, no, it's usually the three of us unless someone can't make it. One of the girls, her husband's Italian, so they've been in Italy for the last couple of months through the pandemic.
Okay. They stuck there?
Once it got better there and it got worse here, that was their time when they went to Italy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So lately it's just been me and Lauren doing a lot of stuff. So we did the Lot Radio ones. We did one for Good Room as well. We did a live stream for Good Room. And then, I did a Love Games mix for Herb Essentials, which is like a New York-based weed skincare company.
So like a CBD type thing?
I guess so, yeah. Creams and
amazing. It's real. That's the kind of craze in the States right now, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Huge in LA when I was there.
And then we're doing a Love Games live stream this Friday night.
Tell me a bit about Love Games, because I only just sort of learnt about that through reading a little bit about you. And Finn Jones, this guy looks super interesting. I've never heard of him before until recently. Tell me the connection between Love Games and Finn Jones and what this party's about.
I originally started Love Games few years ago.
That's a solo thing, right? That's more of your
solo thing, yeah. And I had guests from the New York scene, people like Prince Language, JD Sampson, these kinds of people who are very disco oriented.
Okay.
I did it for about a year and then I took a break from it. And then I started it back when Good Room was starting to do a Wednesday night party where we would just do it in the bad room, in the small room, close off the main floor of the club. And it's a really intimate little thing. So when we were starting to do the Wednesday night parties, I had the idea to ask Finn because I knew that he wanted to start getting into DJing here in New York. He's originally from London.
Okay.
And he had done a little bit there, but not a lot. Finn, I know because he worked on a television show with my friend Trinae. Trinae worked in the wardrobe department and he was an actor on the show. And basically, she saw him at a 718 sessions and then they already had seen each other around and she saw him at the 718 sessions and they were good friends after that. And so he came into our group of friends through our friend Trinae.
Okay.
And yeah, so we started the party. We did it, first of all, as just a one-off night and it went really well. So we did it again and that went really well and we've been doing it ever since. We do it once every other month on a Wednesday night. And then this year we wanted to expand the party and take over the full club and have international guests. And we did that in March, the first weekend of March. We had Session Victim be our guest and that was so awesome because
great artist.
Session Victim's manager actually reached out to me and said, hey, the guys want to do their album launch at Good Room on this day. It comes out on this day and they want to play at Good Room. I was like, yes. I love the Session Victim boys so much. They've become good friends over the years through working at Good Room. So, and their style is very Love Games, because they take from all of these different areas and it is a big, you have disco, you have house, you have hip hop, all these different things that come together and they just play the funnest stuff to dance to every time.
Excellent. Now I have a few of their tunes and they're fantastic. Where are they? Where are they from?
They're German.
Yeah.
They're in Berlin. Oh, they're just massive music nerds. So.
Yeah.
Well, they're my kind of people.
Well, I came across them maybe 3 years ago, I think, from the Mad Racket parties. Like of
course.
Yeah. I noticed Simon Caldwell had booked them. The guys from Jimmy and stuff. They had brought them out a couple of times, and obviously I always trust what those guys do. And so I was intrigued to learn more about them, and I was like, whoa, this is super cool. And ever since then, I've been collecting some of their stuff.
Yeah. Well, basically, I don't know if you know this, but Hawker, one of the guys, used to live in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
Like around 2006, 2007, and that was how he first started going to Mad Racket. He also used to work for he used to work for Future Classic back then as well.
What was his name?
Hawker.
Well, that rings a bell. So, that's strangely.
When the first time he came to New York to play at Good Room, we started talking, and obviously we had that big crossover.
Right, the Aussie connection.
Knowing all the Sydney people.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's now especially, you come across so many Aussies that you find them everywhere.
We are bloody everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Aussies and or Aussie connections that you find, especially in the music world. Like I found there's so many Aussies in LA. Crazy.
Yeah. There's heaps in New York too.
Yeah, that's right.
You hear Aussie accents everywhere you go.
I can say that for sure. I heard so many when I was there last year.
Yeah.
A lot of Melbourneites. Yeah, so let's talk about disco.
Okay. What do you want to know?
You've I mean, aside from the amazing sounds and what it does, but more about, like, I guess the ethos and the free expression and what it represents. Is this something that you have found a deep connection with from your love with disco and like tell me the fast your connection with disco?
Yeah, I guess I'll start from the start. The way that I discovered disco was at a picnic party in Sydney when Mike Simonetti was playing at Good God. And my friend took me. I mean, I was already into electronic music, but not disco music. I was very much into like the electro scene at that time with, like the presets and cut copy and all that Australian wave of music.
Cool.
So my friend is like, I'm going to take you to this club, Good God. I think you'll really like it. Okay, cool. So I go, and it turns out to be a picnic party. Mike Simonetti was playing, and I just like fell in love. And ever since that night, I've, been a big believer in the idea that your life can change in one night on the dance floor. Like, it really can. So yeah, that was how I first started. Like, that was the first disco party I went to, and then started going to more picnic parties in Sydney. And whoever was touring, there was also the Ha Ha parties, People Must Jam parties. There was a few really good, there was a good warehouse scene in Sydney at that time too. So I started going to all these parties, getting more into the music. And then, I started reading about the history through books like Love Saves the Day and Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. And learning about it all. I think one thing that
that's the Bill Brewster book, right? Yeah.
One thing that I really felt a connection with was the fact that when disco was first starting in New York in the 70s, you could go into a nightclub or a dance space and you leave who you are at the door and become who you want to be. Because back then, for a lot of those guys in that scene, they were Black, they were Latino, they were gay. They weren't accepted by the world at that time, but they could go to these nightclubs, take their shirts off, and, have that expression who they want to be in the real world, So I'm like getting goosebumps just thinking about that. So that really struck a chord with me. I love the idea that people can be who they really want to be, because not everybody in life has the ability to do that, So the first trip I did when I came to New York in 2012 was just on a holiday. I got quite lucky. A friend of mine from Sydney used to live in New York, and there was a loft on when I was here, and he put me in touch with his friend who was a member, and I got to go.
Wow.
And I really got to see, all of this culture and things that I'd read so much about. You know, I got to see it in real life. And one of the things that I really love about the Loft, and I see it, like, luckily for me, I am a Loft member now. Every Loft, there is one song every single time that comes on and the whole dance floor just gets it. Everybody's like having this moment under all of like the balloons and the disco ball, and everybody is in that moment together. And it's just the most beautiful thing to me. It's like this shared experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, the next day you'll be talking to your friend, you'll be like, oh my God, remember when they played that song? And you're like, yes, that was the best song, you know? That's something that I try to like take into my parties when I'm DJing, is like trying to create an environment where people, A, can be who they want to be and express themselves freely and have communal experiences. At the Loft, you go in there, you might have a few friends there or whatever, but you could be dancing next to a stranger and this song comes on and you're having this experience together. And then next minute, like, you're having a hug, and next minute you're friends with them. You know, it's a really beautiful thing.
No, I totally like connect with what you're experiencing, what you're explaining. There's something about just like, that's the part of Clubland that's kept me involved in the music industry and kept me like, I'm now over 40 and I still feel like I'm 25.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's a difference between being childlike and childish, right? So like, and I think being childlike is something that I want to be for the rest of my life.
You know, I have to say, you're going to parties like the Loft and 718 Session. I've met people who are in their 70s and 80s who still come out dancing.
Right on.
Dancing keeps you young. It keeps you free-spirited. It keeps you happy.
Yeah.
You know, there's this one guy, his name's David, and I'm so happy every time I get to see him. He has told me all of these stories. Like, he went to the first ever Loft. It was on his birthday. Like, where do you meet these people? But, you know, he still comes to every single party and he still dances, and he's 80 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
amazing.
I've also seen, there's this one guy who comes, I'm not sure of his name, but he walks in with a walker, like, and then when he gets to the dance floor, he puts the walker to the side and dances, you know?
Amazing,
like,
amazing.
Yeah. It's really, you know, to see all these older people who have, like, been through it all over the years, and they still love it just as much 50 years later as what they did in the 70s.
Yeah. It keeps people, it gives that life, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I think, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's also a sense of community.
Yes.
Especially for people as they get older, you know, you tend to become more of a homebody and lose connections with people. The dance floor is giving them a reason to go out, a reason to meet new people, you know, and
exactly.
have these new experiences.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just going to add that I was blessed to have my folks. I learned a lot of that from my parents, and they still dance. They still go out and dance now. Like,
that's amazing. I love that.
And like dad's 70 now, and mum's almost late 60s, and they're still partying. Like,
yeah. My parents still party too. I mean, they don't go out dancing, but my dad still loves like going to the pub on like a Sunday afternoon and seeing a blues band and stuff
awesome.
like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Like, music has always been such a big part of my life, and I feel very lucky. Yeah,
there's something I wanted to add about that. But anyway,
I could say something about it if you want. I don't know if your experiences are the same, having grown up in Australia.
Well, that's it.
A little bit older than mine, so maybe they didn't have this. But, you know, I grew up hearing stories about Wollongong back in the day, and how every night of the week you used to go to a different venue. Like, Monday night you would go to this place, Tuesday night you go to this place.
Around
on a weekly rotation. And they used to see in the 70s bands like In Excess and AC/DC and Dragon for like $1 at their local pub.
Amazing.
My parents used to always say to me when I was growing up, they're like, I was definitely like into rock music when I was growing up. And they're like, Lauren, you were born in the wrong era. Yeah. Well,
there is that crossover, especially like punk rock and disco kind of like
absolutely.
have this connection there, and that whole sort of post-punk as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, talking about connecting with people on the dance floor, I mean, that's how we met last year.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, 100%.
We met in a park dancing to disco. And what was also great was that crew that were putting on that party were part of like a collective of disco purveyors back then. They were another crew. What were they called? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know. So we met as part of the dance parade, and the float that I'm always involved in every year is the oh goodness, I can't even remember it right now.
But that crew in the park, they were in their 50s, like that. The guys DJing, and they were playing. You know, they weren't just playing like, they were playing proper like disco, like proper disco and early anthems that, but rare stuff. You know, like know, but the real disco heads, they were all the favorites. You know, like. Yeah. And it wasn't your best of 80, 70s disco stuff. This was like proper stuff. And that you could see that a lot of the people that came down for that dance session in the park were loyal fans of this crew, and they all knew each other. You know, they all like it was just beautiful. That was just an amazing day. Where was I during the day? I was at home. I was staying in Brooklyn, and I thought, I want to go out and check this out. And then I saw Nathan, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years, and that's how, I saw you. It's amazing. I
know. Yeah. I don't know, New York is kind of funny like that, the way that you like run into people and you have these like serendipitous moments. It's a very special city.
Yeah, and even like the connections of the people that we know back home in Sydney as well.
Yeah.
It's good, it's crazy. Yeah, so tell me what else is coming up next for Laura and Murada and Good Room. What's happening?
With Good Room, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. Originally, we thought that Good Room would open clubs would reopen in phase 4, which happened in like mid-July, but just with like a limited capacity, But then they changed the rules. So places like nightclubs, movie theaters, shopping malls, anywhere that has like a big AC unit where the air is cycled around, they haven't allowed to reopen. So that was a bit of a blow. I mean, essentially, we have no idea when things will reopen. I don't think it'll be likely before the end of the year. I saw in Massachusetts, they announced they're not going to let nightclubs reopen until there's a vaccine. So it's kind of, hard to know.
Hard to gauge.
Everything is so questionable right now, so we just have to wait it out and see. So that's kind of Good Room's future. We'll keep doing the live streams and everything like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to do at least one a week. So.
And have you got some kind of like schedule or regularity with your own DJ mixes, or it's just something that you just kind of like do when you?
It's the things that when they come up, they come up. But I can tell you, I'm on. Let me get my calendar so I can get. Right. So on Friday, which is August 14, I'm doing the Love Games live stream.
Oh, I love it. Where would people be able to see that?
So that would be on Twitch, on Good Room's Twitch.
Okay.
So it's twitch.tv/GoodRoomBK. And that's from 6 till 11 p.m. New York time. And then
that would be 6 till 11. That's 5. That's like around... That's our morning on Saturday the 15th in Dubai.
There you go. You have a breakfast rave.
That's it. Breakfast rave. Exactly.
And then on Tuesday the 18th, I'm doing a live stream with LNL Record Club for Future Classics Twitch.
Okay, awesome.
And then the last weekend of the month, doing a live stream for the Ultraviolet Festival.
Oh, cool. That's right. I saw that. Yeah. Meg got you on.
Yeah. But I'm not sure what day that will be. Yeah.
I think that's from memory the 27th and 28th of August.
Yeah.
That weekend. Yeah. Oh, cool.
I mean,
Cool.
So that's kind of it for the end of this month. And then it's everything comes up just month by month at this point. You can't really plan for DJ gigs that are really far in advance right now. But yeah, and I mean, for me, myself personally, I would like to try and go back to Australia for a couple months, you know, at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to be there too.
It's also hard to know what the situation is going to be, you know, because while I'm not working here, I might as well be in Australia going to the beach every day, especially once it gets cold here. There's so much concern right now about a second wave in the wintertime. And doing quarantine one time for, 2-3 months where you barely left your apartment was fine. But I don't know, to have to do that again in the middle of winter in New York looks pretty brutal. So, but it's hard to know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I'm hoping to get to Oz around then too, December for Chrissy and New Year's.
Yeah. I was hoping to go for like November, December, quarantine for 2 weeks at the start and then have around 6 weeks chilling. But yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, it was so lovely to catch up and touch base again, especially during these times, and check in with you. We'll definitely have to stay in touch, and hopefully we'll see each other in Sydney like we did last summer. Yeah. Have you got any what links can people find your mixes?
So I have most of the mixes are on my SoundCloud, which is soundcloud.com/Lauren-Murada. Murada spelled Murada. And then for any upcoming events that I'm doing, I post everything on my Instagram.
Cool.
So that's at Lauren_Murada. And that's, Murada.
Can I say that's such a cool name?
Thank you. It's pretty unique. I believe there's only around like 400 Muradas in the world.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean,
and it's such a disco name, isn't it?
It has an Italian background.
Okay.
And my friend in New York is from Italy. When I told him my name was Italian, he's like, "Oh, so your name is Lauren Murada." Damn, I need to introduce myself like that. Like that sounds so much sexier. Like, yeah.
And you could tie it in with the whole Italo disco scene. And
exactly. What I'm talking about.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure.